John Miller had always wanted peace. After years in the noisy city, he was tired of people, tired of traffic, and tired of everything that made his life feel small. So when he found an old country house listed for a very low price, he didn't even think twice. The house looked lonely, sitting at the end of a dirt road surrounded by dark woods. Its roof leaned, its windows looked tired, and the paint had almost vanished. But John didn't care. It was quiet. It was cheap. And it was his. The man who sold it to him didn't say much. He only gave a strange warning before leaving. Stay away from the basement at night. The house doesn't like to be disturbed. John laughed it off. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses. He believed in logic, not nonsense. Still, something about the man's serious face made him uneasy. The first day passed quietly. John unpacked his boxes, cleaned dusty shelves, and tried to ignore the feeling that the house was watching him. The air felt heavy. Every step made the floor groan and cold air crept out from small cracks in the walls. But he told himself it was just an old building. Nothing more. That night, rain started to fall. It wasn't gentle rain, it was hard and angry, the kind that makes windows shake. John sat near the fireplace trying to read a book, but the storm kept breaking his focus. Every few minutes he thought he heard something under the floor. Not a creak, not a rat. It was a rhythm. Tap, 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 slow, careful, like someone knocking. He closed the book and listened. The sound came again. 3 slow taps, then silence, then 2 more. Probably just the pipes, he muttered to himself. But deep inside he wasn't sure. When the lights flickered and went out, his heart started to beat faster. The house was completely dark except for the orange glow of the fireplace. The tapping sound grew louder, closer. It seemed to come from the living room floor, right under his feet. John took a flashlight and knelt down. The sound stopped. He pressed his ear against the wooden floorboards. For a moment there was only the wind outside. Then tap, tap, and a voice, weak, almost a whisper. Please help. John jumped back so fast he dropped the flashlight. The voice was real. Someone was under the floor. He grabbed a hammer from his toolbox and started prying the old boards open. His hands shook, but he couldn't stop. The wood was old and broke easily. Dust filled the air. Beneath the floor was something that didn't belong there at all. Metal. Cold silver metal shaped like a box. No, not a box, a cage. Inside that cage was a small figure curled up in the corner. At first he thought it was a child. Then the flashlight caught her face and he froze. It wasn't a child. It wasn't even human. Her skin was pale with faint silver patterns that glowed softly in the dark. Her eyes were huge, glassy, and faintly blue. Her hair was thin and white like thread. Chains around her wrists rattled when she moved. Scars covered her arms and legs. Long, painful lines that looked burned into her. She looked terrified of him. John whispered, Who are you? The girl flinched and covered her face. Don't hurt me, she whispered in a trembling voice. Please, I didn't mean to be found. Her words made no sense. Found by who? John's throat went dry. I'm not going to hurt you, he said softly. How did you get here? But before she could answer, she looked past him toward the door, her blue eyes wide with fear. They're coming, she said. Who's coming? He asked, confused. She shook her head. They always come when the lights go out. Suddenly, the lights in the whole house blinked on for a second, then exploded with a loud pop. Every bulb shattered. John felt the air vibrate as if a strong magnetic pulse passed through the walls. His flashlight flickered and died. In the darkness, the girl's skin glowed brighter. She pressed her small hands against the metal bars and said in a low, broken voice, If you open this cage, they will come for both of us. John stepped back, breathing hard. Who are they? But the girl didn't answer. She just stared at him with eyes full of pain and fear. The wind howled outside. The rain turned to thunder. For a moment, John thought he saw a shadow move past the window. A dark shape, tall and mechanical, glowing red under the storm. Then the girl whispered, Please, human. Don't let them take me again. John looked at the cage, at the strange metal locks covered in symbols he didn't understand. His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to walk away, to pretend he had never seen this. But something inside him refused to leave her there. He tightened his grip on the hammer. The floor shook again as thunder crashed above. He looked into her glowing eyes and said, I'm getting you out of there, the girl whispered one last time. Then it's already too late. And somewhere outside, deep in the storm, a low hum began to rise, A sound that wasn't thunder. A sound that felt alive. The storm raged outside like an angry beast. John stood over the open floor, staring at the glowing girl trapped in the cage. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the thunder. The strange humming outside grew deeper, sharper, like a machine breathing. The girl's skin flickered with blue light as if reacting to the sound. "They found me," she whispered. "They never stop." John didn't understand what she meant, but his instincts screamed danger. He ran to the window and looked out. Through the rain, two dark vehicles rolled up the muddy road. No headlights, only red scanning beams sweeping across the yard. Government? Military? Hunters? He couldn't tell. He turned back to the girl. "Who are they?" Her voice was faint but filled with fear. "Humans, the ones who made this cage. The ones who call me a weapon." John froze. "A weapon?" She nodded slowly. "They took me from my home. From the stars. They said they wanted peace, but they only wanted power. I escaped once. They hid me here to study how fear changes me." John stared, not knowing what to believe. She looked weak, barely alive, not like a weapon. She was just a child or something close to one. He knelt beside the cage. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. "Lyra," she said softly. "I had another name before, but they erased it from me." "Lyra," he repeated. "Okay, Lyra. We'll get you out. We'll go somewhere safe." Her eyes filled with tears that glowed faintly. "There is no safe place for me. Not on this planet." Before John could answer, heavy footsteps echoed outside the front door. Metal boots. Voices through the storm. "Move in. Scan for life signs." John's blood ran cold. They were already inside the gate. Lyra gripped the bars tightly. "If they see me, they'll take you too." "They don't leave witnesses." John's hands trembled. He looked at the locks again. No keyhole, only strange shapes carved into the metal. He hit one with his hammer, but the sound it made was wrong, like striking stone underwater. "Don't," Lyra cried. "It's energy bound. You'll trigger the alarm." He stopped instantly. "Then tell me how to open it." Her eyes glowed brighter as she stared at the top of the cage. "There's a symbol near the back, like 3 circles. Press them in the right order." John crawled over the broken floorboards, searching with his flashlight. Outside, the front door creaked open. Shadows moved in the hallway. He found the circles, small, glowing faintly under the metal dust. "Which order?" "Middle, left, right," she whispered. He pressed them quickly. For a second, nothing happened. Then the whole cage gave off a faint hum and the locks clicked. The blue light around the bars faded. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "It's open." "Then move," John said, lifting the cage door. Lyra crawled out slowly, weak and trembling. Her feet barely touched the ground before she stumbled, and John caught her. Her skin was cool, almost cold like snow. Suddenly, bright light exploded through the living room window, a blinding white beam from outside. A voice shouted through a loudspeaker, "John Miller!" "Step away from the subject." John's breath caught. "They knew his name. How do they track everything," Lyra said, clutching his arm. "Even your phone. Even your heartbeat." John grabbed his bag and pulled her toward the back door. "We're leaving." They ran through the kitchen, pushing past broken chairs and dust. The back door was old but unlocked. Rain poured down hard, washing away footprints as they sprinted toward the trees. Behind them, men shouted. A gun fired. The sound cracked the night. Lyra flinched, and her body glowed brighter, pulsing like lightning. The air around them buzzed with static energy. The bullet slowed mid-air and dropped to the ground like metal rain. John stared in disbelief. "Why did you—" She shook her head. "I can't control it when I'm scared." "Then stay close," he said. "Don't be scared now." They reached the dark forest, branches scratching their faces. The sound of boots and machines followed close behind. Drones flew above the trees, red beams sweeping across the wet leaves. John's breath came fast and sharp. "They'll find us if we keep running in the open." Lyra stopped and turned toward him. Her eyes glowed brighter than before. "I can hide us for a little while." "How?" She touched his forehead gently. A faint blue wave spread through his vision, and suddenly the air around them shimmered. Their bodies turned faint, almost invisible, blending with the rain and trees. John couldn't see his own hands. "What is this?" "Light bending," Lyra whispered weakly. "But it won't last long. My energy is low." Through the mist, soldiers ran past them, shouting orders, unaware that the two were only a few feet away. John held his breath until they were gone. Then he looked down at Lyra. She was shaking, her glow fading fast. "We need to rest," he said softly. "Then we'll figure out what to do next." Lyra nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "You shouldn't have helped me, John. They'll never stop now." John stared through the rain toward the road they came from. The old house was burning, red light flashing through smoke. "I don't care," he said quietly. "No one deserves to live in a cage." As thunder rolled over the forest, Lyra looked up at him with tired eyes and said, "Then you've just made yourself their new target." The forest was dark and alive. Cold rain fell through the trees like glass beads, and every drop carried the sound of danger. John half-dragged, half-carried Lyra through the thick mud. Her body was weak, her light fading with every step. Behind them, the night glowed red. The old house burned bright in the distance, silent proof that there was no turning back. "Just a little farther," John whispered. Lyra's voice was soft, broken. "They won't stop." "You don't understand. They built machines that can smell energy. They'll track me through the static in the air." John didn't care. He only knew one thing: he couldn't leave her. Not after what he saw. They found a small cave hidden behind wet vines and slipped inside. It was cold, damp, but safe for now. The storm outside was dying down, replaced by the faint buzzing sound of drones scanning the forest. John set down his bag and lit a small battery lantern. Lyra flinched from the light, curling up near the wall like a frightened animal. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." "No one is safe," she murmured. "Not near me." John sat across from her, breathing hard. His mind spun with questions. Who were those men? What was Project Horizon? And why was she treated like a monster? But when he looked at her small, trembling body, all his anger melted into quiet pity. "You said they built machines," he said finally. "Machines to find you. Are they human?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "Not anymore. They changed themselves. To fight us, they became like us. Flesh mixed with code. They're hunters now, half machine, half man." Her voice trembled. "They can see heat through walls. Hear your heartbeat from miles away." John looked toward the cave entrance. "Then we need to move before dawn." Lyra nodded weakly. "I can help, but I need energy." He frowned. "Energy, like food?" She looked up, her blue eyes glowing faintly. "No, light." Without thinking, John held the lantern closer. The glow from the bulb touched her skin, and immediately her scars began to fade just slightly. Her breathing eased. "That's better," she whispered. John watched in awe. "You absorb light?" "All life does," she said softly. "Yours just forgets how." He smiled faintly, even through the fear. But before he could say more, the faint hum of engines rolled across the forest. Lyra's eyes widened. "They're close." John quickly turned off the lantern. The cave fell into total darkness. A beam of red light swept across the trees outside. Shadows moved. Voices echoed through the rain. Heat signature fading east. Possible interference source detected. Lyra pressed her hands to the ground, whispering strange words in a language John didn't understand. The air in the cave shimmered faintly. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Hiding us again. But it won't fool them for long." Outside, one of the drones stopped near the cave entrance. Its sensor turned slowly, glowing red like an evil eye. John's heart froze. The drone hovered there for what felt like hours. Then it drifted away, leaving only silence. He exhaled shakily. That was close. Lyra looked at him, her face pale. "You shouldn't have helped me, human. They'll mark you as a traitor." He gave a small, tired laugh. "I've been called worse." Lyra tilted her head. "Why help me? You don't know me." John looked down at his hands. "Because someone has to." Her expression softened, almost like she couldn't believe his words. No one had spoken kindly to her in years. After a long silence, Lyra said, "My people used to say humans could be kind. That there were good hearts among you. Maybe. They were right." But before John could answer, a new sound filled the air, something heavier, closer, metallic. Outside the cave, a shadow moved. Then another. Voices again, this time clearer. "She's near." "The readings spiked here. Prepare for capture." John reached for a stick, but Lyra grabbed his hand. "No, they have pulse rifles." "One hit and your heart stops," he whispered fiercely. "Then what do we do?" Lyra looked at the cave wall. "We dig down. There's a tunnel under this rock. I can feel it. It was part of an old mining site." "How can you feel that?" She closed her eyes. The earth remembers sound. John didn't understand, but he didn't have time to argue. They started digging with their hands, pulling wet soil aside. Each second felt like a heartbeat closer to death. The metallic footsteps stopped right outside the cave. A voice said, "Thermal scan locked. Target inside." John's hands shook. The tunnel opening was barely wide enough for Lyra. "Go!" he whispered. She hesitated. "Not without you." He pushed her forward. "Go!" Lyra crawled into the tunnel just as the cave filled with red light. John dove after her, dirt falling around them as pulse beams tore through the air. They slid deeper and deeper, the tunnel collapsing behind them. When they finally stopped, gasping for breath, they were in a dark underground room. Old bricks, broken tools, and rusted machines. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "They'll seal the exits. We can't stay here." John wiped the mud from his face. "Then we keep moving until we find somewhere they can't follow." Lyra hesitated, then reached out her small, glowing hand. "If we're going to survive, you have to trust me." John stared at her for a long second, then took her hand. In that moment, he felt a faint pulse of warmth spread through his chest, like light traveling through his veins. Lyra whispered, "Now we're connected. They won't just chase me anymore. They'll chase us." Outside, the sound of machines grew louder again, and deep underground, John realized there was no turning back. The tunnel was long and endless. John's hands were bleeding from crawling over rocks, but he didn't stop. The air was thick and cold, smelling of rust and dust. Behind them, faint echoes of footsteps still followed, distant but steady, like a machine heartbeat that never tired. Lyra led the way, her faint blue glow lighting the walls around them. Her scars shone softly, tracing strange lines like constellations. She moved carefully, always listening. "Where are we going?" John asked between breaths. "There's an old human shelter," Lyra said softly. "From your wars. Deep underground. They used it for testing. Before they built the cages." John's voice grew tense. "Testing what?" Lyra didn't answer right away. The silence between them felt heavy, filled with memories neither wanted to touch. Finally, she said, "They called it Project Horizon. That's where they changed me." John stopped. "Changed you how?" Lyra turned to face him. Her eyes were sad, full of an ancient kind of pain. "They tried to make me human." He blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "They took my blood, my light, my thoughts. They said they wanted to blend species, to make soldiers who could heal, see through darkness, and survive anywhere." She touched her arm where deep scars crossed her skin. "They broke me to understand me." John felt sick. "My God. How could they? They called it progress," Lyra whispered. "But to them I was just data." For a moment neither spoke. The tunnel dripped with water. Far away, thunder rumbled like a memory of the world above. John finally said, "I used to think humans were good at heart. But this," Lyra looked at him with quiet sadness. "Humans are both. Kind and cruel. My people learned that too late." He looked away, ashamed. "I'm sorry." She shook her head gently. "You didn't do this, but you can help end it." John's mind filled with questions, but before he could speak, Lyra stopped suddenly. She raised a hand, signaling silence. From up ahead came a faint humming, mechanical, rhythmic. Light leaked through a broken vent. John crouched and peeked through. Below them was a huge underground chamber filled with machines. Rusted computers lined the walls, and in the center stood a large glass tank glowing pale blue. Inside floated something alive, a body, human in shape but not human at all. Lyra stared in horror. "No, they didn't destroy it," John frowned. "What is it?" "Another one of me," she whispered. "A clone. An unfinished copy. They tried to build more, but they couldn't control them." John's stomach twisted. "You mean there are more of you?" "Not anymore. Most died in the cages. The rest—" Her voice cracked. "The rest went mad." They moved quietly along a metal bridge toward the far end of the room. But as they passed the tank, the creature inside twitched. Its eyes opened, bright white, inhuman. The glass vibrated, then cracked. Lyra gasped. "It's awake." The glass shattered with a deafening sound. Blue liquid spilled everywhere. The clone stumbled out, its skin half metal, half flesh. Its voice was broken and metallic. "Subject escaped, terminate." John grabbed Lyra's hand and ran. The creature let out a scream that shook the air. Red lights flashed across the chamber. "Security breach detected." a robotic voice said from the speakers. All units respond. Doors opened along the walls. Metal drones dropped down, aiming bright red lasers. John and Lyra ran through a maintenance tunnel. Sparks rained from the ceiling as drones fired. Lyra turned suddenly, her eyes blazing. She raised her hands and a wave of energy shot out like lightning. The drones exploded in a storm of blue light. John shielded his face. "What are you doing?" "Surviving," she said, her voice shaking. "But every time I use my power, they find us faster." They reached another metal door, half open and rusted. John pushed hard and it finally gave way. Inside was a small control room filled with old computers. The air smelled of oil and burned wires. Lyra sat down heavily, trembling. Her glow dimmed. John knelt beside her. "You need rest." She nodded weakly. "I can't hold it much longer. My energy's fading." He looked around and found a small generator in the corner. It still had a faint hum. He turned it on and the lights flickered. Lyra reached toward the glow, absorbing it like a flower drinking sunlight. Color returned to her face. "Thank you," John smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me." She looked at him seriously. "You don't understand. I can feel your thoughts when you're near me now. The link between us, it's growing." He froze. "You can read my mind?" "Not all," she said softly. "Only what your heart shouts the loudest." John felt his face heat. "And what's that?" She smiled weakly. "You're afraid, but not of them. You're afraid of what I might become." He didn't answer, because it was true. Before he could speak, a loud crash echoed from above. The clone had found them. Lyra stood, her glow returning stronger than before. "If they want a weapon, I'll give them one." John grabbed her arm. "No, you're not a weapon, Lyra. You're alive." Her eyes shimmered. "Then maybe it's time I prove it." Outside the room, the walls began to shake as the clone's voice echoed. "Target located. Terminate both." John tightened his grip on her hand. "Then we fight together." Lyra looked at him, and for the first time she smiled. The sound of metal footsteps grew louder. Dust fell from the ceiling as the clone tore through the upper tunnels, its voice echoing like thunder in a steel box. "Target acquired. Prepare containment." John's breath came fast. He grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her behind a broken control console. The room was shaking now. Every second felt shorter than the last. Lyra's glow brightened, lighting the dark corners of the room. "He's connected to me," she whispered. "He can feel where I am." "He's my echo. My pain is his signal." "Then we have to cut that link," John said, scanning the room. He found a thick cable connected to the main terminal. "If I shut this power line, will it stop him?" Lyra shook her head. "No, but it might slow his sensors. Hurry." John yanked the cable free. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and the clone screamed. The walls trembled as it crashed through metal vents, landing in front of them with a sound like breaking bones. It stood over 2 meters tall, its half-metal face twisted and wet with glowing blue veins. Its voice came out in broken words. "Subject, escaped violation, terminate order." "Confirmed." John froze. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "I'm not your subject," she said coldly. "I'm alive." The clone's arm unfolded into a sharp energy blade. John grabbed a metal pipe and swung at it, but the creature caught it easily and threw him across the room. He hit the wall hard and fell, gasping for air. "John!" Lyra shouted, running to him. The clone turned toward her. "You are property of Horizon Command. Return." "To containment." "No," Lyra whispered. "Not anymore." She lifted both hands. Blue energy rippled out, slamming into the clone with blinding light. The floor cracked beneath their feet. The clone stumbled but didn't fall. Its systems roared, adapting to her frequency. "It's learning," John coughed. "You can't fight it that way." Lyra looked desperate. "Then how?" He pointed to the generator. "Overload it." "Make it explode!" Lyra hesitated. "It will kill us too." "Then it kills both of us," he said, standing up slowly. "No more cages. No more running." She stared at him, her expression soft but sad. Then she nodded. Together. Lyra's hands glowed like twin stars. She pressed them against the generator. The hum grew louder, sharper, until it turned into a scream of metal. The clone lunged forward, grabbing her throat, and everything went white. When John opened his eyes, the world was silent. The control room was gone. Only smoke, twisted steel, and ash remained. His body ached everywhere, but somehow he was alive. "Lyra," he whispered, coughing. He looked around desperately. Then he saw her lying near a broken console. Her glow was faint, her skin pale as moonlight. He crawled to her side and touched her face. "I'm here," she whispered weakly. "We did it." He smiled through the pain. "We're alive!" But the moment didn't last. From the smoke, heavy boots approached, several of them. Figures in dark armor surrounded them, rifles raised. Each helmet had a glowing red visor. "Targets located," one soldier said. "Both breathing. Secure them." John tried to stand, but one soldier struck him in the head with a rifle butt. The world spun. He hit the ground. Lyra screamed, reaching out, but they shocked her with a metal rod. Her body convulsed, her glow fading to nothing. "Subject neutralized," another voice said. "Return to base." John woke up hours later. His head throbbed. His vision was blurry. He was lying on a metal bed in a white room. The air smelled of disinfectant and electricity. Machines hummed around him. He sat up slowly and froze. Across the glass wall stood Lyra, trapped again. This time the cage was larger, brighter, and filled with blue energy. She floated slightly above the floor, her wrists bound by metal cuffs. "Lyra," John shouted, slamming his fists against the glass. "Let her go," a voice spoke from behind him. "Mr. Miller, you've done well." John turned. A man in a black uniform stepped forward. His face was calm, clean, and cold. His name tag read, "Commander Holt. You found our missing asset," Holt said. "We've been searching for her for 3 years. Asset?" John spat. "She's a living being." The commander smiled faintly. "She's a weapon. A living energy core. Do you have any idea what she's capable of?" John glared at him. "You mean what you made her capable of?" Holt ignored him and tapped on a small tablet. "You helped us locate her signal. Without you, we couldn't have activated her tracker." "You did your part, John." John's stomach dropped. "You used me?" Holt nodded almost kindly. "Of course. We knew the old house would attract curious buyers. You were perfect, lonely, harmless, forgettable." John felt sick. "You monsters," Holt sighed. "Monsters build the future, Mr. Miller. The rest just live in it." He turned toward the glass chamber. "Now we'll finish what we started. She's the key to the next generation of human evolution." Inside the cage, Lyra lifted her head. Her voice was weak but filled with fire. "You can't control me again," Holt smirked. "We'll see." He pressed a button on the tablet and the chamber filled with blinding light. Lyra screamed. Energy surged through her body, shaking the walls. "Stop it," John yelled, pounding on the glass. "You'll kill her!" But Holt only watched. "If she dies, we make another." Then suddenly the lights flickered. The alarms began to scream. A voice echoed through the speakers. "Containment breach in Sector 9, energy spike detected." John looked back at Lyra. Her eyes were open now, glowing pure white. The glass began to crack. Holt's smile vanished. "What have you done?" Lyra's voice thundered through the room. "You wanted power. Now face it." The chamber exploded in a wave of blue light. The world vanished in blue light. Walls cracked, alarms screamed, and metal screamed louder. The lab shattered like glass under the force of a living storm. John covered his face as energy tore through the room. Heat and light roared around him, lifting him off the ground. For a few seconds, there was nothing but blinding white. When silence finally returned, he opened his eyes. Smoke filled the air. Sparks rained from broken machines. The floor was split in half, and in the center of the destruction stood Lyra. Her body glowed brighter than ever. Her eyes burned with a white light that wasn't human. The metal cuffs on her wrists had melted away. She hovered slightly above the floor, her hair moving like it was caught in an invisible wind. John stumbled forward, coughing. "Lyra!" She turned toward him slowly. Her face looked calm, but her voice echoed like thunder and whisper at once. "You should have run, John." He stared at her, half in awe, half in fear. "They were torturing you. I couldn't leave you." Her gaze softened for a moment. "You shouldn't have cared. Now you're marked too." Before he could reply, Commander Holt's voice came from behind a pile of broken glass. He was alive, his uniform torn, his face covered in blood. He held a small black device in his hand. "Don't move," he shouted. "You think you're free?" "You're not. You're still ours." Lyra's glow flickered. "You never owned me." Holt pressed the device. A sharp pulsing sound filled the room. Lyra screamed and fell to her knees, clutching her head. The light around her dimmed. John lunged at Holt, knocking the device away. The commander drew his pistol, but John slammed his arm into a wall. The gun went off, grazing John's shoulder. Pain burned down his arm, but he didn't stop. "You used me," John shouted. "You used her." Holt struggled, snarling. You don't understand. She's not a girl, she's a reactor. Her energy could power cities, save billions. John punched him hard. Holt fell back, hitting the floor. You don't save lives by destroying them. He turned back to Lyra. She was shaking, trying to stand, her glow faint again. He rushed to her side. Come on, we're getting out of here. Lyra's voice was weak. There's an exit through the lower deck, but the whole facility is collapsing. The reactors, they'll explode soon. John helped her to her feet. Then we move now. They ran down the shattered hallway. Alarms wailed. Red lights flashed in the smoke. Everywhere, soldiers lay unconscious or worse, their weapons melted by the energy surge. As they passed through the corridor, the sound of groaning metal filled the air. The ceiling cracked, spilling fire and debris. John shielded Lyra as they pushed through. In one room, they found an open steel door leading into a large chamber filled with glowing tubes. Inside the tubes floated more bodies, half human, half alien, all lifeless. Lyra stopped, tears in her glowing eyes. They said we were failures, but we were only afraid. John looked around at the broken test pods. You weren't failures, he said softly. You were prisoners. Suddenly, a loud metallic voice echoed through the speaker system. Self-destruct sequence activated. Facility collapse in 5 minutes. John's heart pounded. 5 minutes? Lyra, which way? She pointed toward a metal staircase. Down. There's an emergency transport tunnel. They ran, every step shaking beneath them. The air grew hotter as the reactors below began to melt. When they reached the tunnel door, it was locked tight. John tried to pry it open, but it wouldn't move. Lyra pressed her hands against it. Her eyes glowed once more. The lock melted like wax. The door opened, and beyond it was a long metallic tunnel leading into the darkness. A faint blue light shimmered at the far end. It wasn't human-made. It looked alive, like the light of her home. Lyra stared at it, her face full of wonder and fear. That's not the tunnel I remember. That's a rift. My people left it open when they came for me. It leads off-world. John blinked. Off-world? You mean another planet? She nodded slowly. If I go through, I can never return. The tunnel behind them shook violently. Flames rose up from the floor. John looked from the portal to her. Then go, you can still be free. She looked back at him, eyes glistening. What about you? I'll find a way out, he lied. You have to survive. She stepped closer, her light wrapping around him like warmth. You can't lie to me anymore, John. I can feel your heart. He smiled faintly. Then you know I'd rather die free than live in their world. Lyra's tears glowed as they fell. If you come with me, you'll never see Earth again. John took her hand. Earth already died the moment they built this place. For a long moment they stood in the burning tunnel, holding hands while the world fell apart behind them. Then Lyra looked at the glowing portal. Hold on tight. She lifted her hand, and the air around them burst into white fire. Gravity vanished. The sound of collapsing steel faded away. The last thing John saw of Earth was the crumbling laboratory swallowed by flames. And then they were gone, drawn into the light, beyond the stars. Light. Endless light. John felt like he was falling and floating at the same time. The air was soft, warm, and alive. He couldn't breathe, but somehow he didn't need to. Around him were colors he had never seen before, shifting, glowing, singing softly like a heartbeat from the universe itself. Then, all at once, the light faded. He landed on solid ground. The air smelled clean, like rain after a storm. Above him stretched a sky filled with 2 suns and thousands of bright rings circling the horizon. The ground sparkled faintly, as if the soil itself remembered stars. Lyra stood beside him. She looked different now, stronger, calmer. The scars on her arms were gone, replaced by faint silver lines that pulsed like veins of light. Her eyes still glowed, but gently, not with pain. John took a deep breath. Where are we? Lyra smiled softly. Home, or what's left of it. He looked around in awe. Floating islands hung in the distance, connected by bridges of light. Strange plants swayed without wind. Water fell upward, turning into clouds before reaching the ground. Everything shimmered, like the air itself was alive. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Lyra nodded. "This was our sanctuary before humans came. Before the war." John frowned. "There was a war?" "Yes," she said quietly. "We tried to teach your people peace. They took our knowledge and turned it into weapons. Project Horizon was born from that betrayal." John lowered his head. "I'm sorry." She touched his hand gently. "You have nothing to be sorry for. You chose differently. You chose to save, not destroy." He looked at her glowing fingers against his rough skin. "And now? What happens to us?" Lyra gazed up at the twin suns. "My people left long ago, scattered across the stars. Only echoes of them remain here. But this place still remembers me, and now it knows you." As she spoke, the ground beneath them shimmered. From the soil rose faint shapes, figures made of light and memory. They looked like her, tall and graceful, eyes glowing like moons. Their voices blended into a single soft song. "They welcome you," Lyra said. "You freed one of their own." John stared at the figures. "They're ghosts?" "Not ghosts," Lyra said. "Energy, consciousness, the last memory of my kind." The shapes moved closer, surrounding them in a gentle circle. One reached out, touching John's chest. For a moment he saw flashes, Lyra as a child taken by soldiers locked in cages crying in darkness. Then he saw her escape, her fear, and her hope. When the vision ended, tears filled his eyes. "You suffered so much." Lyra looked away. "And still you reached out your hand." John smiled sadly. "I think anyone with a heart would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, only someone who still believed that humans could be better." Silence fell between them. The light beings slowly faded back into the air, leaving only the soft hum of the planet's energy. Lyra turned to him. "You can stay here. This world will accept you. It will heal you." John stared at the horizon. "And Earth?" "Earth will remember nothing," she said softly. "They'll erase you. They'll erase me. To them, this never happened." He nodded slowly. "Maybe that's for the best." Lyra tilted her head. "Do you regret it?" He smiled faintly. "No. I made a promise to myself, to do something right for once, to help someone who needed it. That's enough." A warm breeze passed between them, carrying faint voices, like whispers from a faraway world. Lyra stepped closer. "You could live here, John. You'd never grow old. You'd never be hunted again." He looked at her long and hard. "And what about you?" She hesitated. "I have to close the rift. If I don't, they'll find a way here." "Then I'm staying," he said firmly. "John, no." He smiled. "If I go back, they'll just use me to find you again. But here, I can help you build something new, a place where no one cages anyone." For the first time since he met her, Lyra truly smiled, a warm, human smile. "You're strange, John Miller." He laughed softly. "So I've been told." The suns began to sink, painting the sky gold and violet. Lyra lifted her hand, and a small orb of blue light floated upward, growing brighter. "What is that?" John asked. "A message," she said. "To Earth." The orb pulsed once, then shot into the sky, vanishing among the stars. "What did you tell them?" he asked. Lyra looked up, her voice soft but steady. "Just one thing. Thank you for believing in me, human." John smiled. "That sounds like a good ending." Lyra nodded. "No, John. This is only the beginning." They stood side by side as the rift behind them began to close, sealing the path between worlds forever. The last thing Earth would ever. Record was a faint, unexplained signal from deep space. A voice, calm and kind, whispering across the stars. Humanity still has light. And then, silence. But somewhere beyond that silence, two souls, one human, one alien, walked beneath twin suns, building a new world together.